Let's recap 2024 and the national championship game. Campus2Canton is live right now. It's Felix Sharpe and Austin Nace for Campus2Canton.com. I hope you all like what we're doing trying to grow this college fantasy game. We are on the way to 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So we don't know what we're doing. So we would appreciate it if you would go ahead and hit that like button. Let's get this to 50 likes and subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 5,000. Austin, national championship game over. You know, a little bit of a snoozer. I think we expected that. I think you're going to laugh at what my thought was watching this game.
Okay.
Because I'm watching Will Howard dink and dunk, right? I'm watching Riley Leonard damn near do the brotherly shove all the way down the field, at least on that first drive. And I was thinking, we need Lincoln Riley. We need Lincoln Riley. We need Kalen DeBoer. We need Josh Heupel. Like, we need those guys back in the college football playoff and then on the big stage in the national championship game, because those games are fun to watch. When Kalen DeBoer has got Michael Penix Jr., throwing it all over the place against Texas. Now, I know the championship game last year wasn't great, but when you have Michael Penix Jr. carving up a defense, or when you've got, Sark with Mac Jones and Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith and those guys, it's just like there's a certain beauty to college football. And not that it wasn't, beautiful on Monday night, but I mean, we're a college fantasy company. And how much is Notre Dame, bringing to the table in that respect? Before, like, late in the game when they start throwing the ball to Jaden Greathouse, who we need to talk about. But I think my takeaway from the game is Chip Kelly knew that he didn't need to take any risks. He didn't need to stretch the field with Jeremiah Smith, who's one of the best players, if not the best player in college football, because he's got some of the rest of the best players in college football on that defense. So my takeaway was like, man, I just wish for once, like when everyone is watching, that they could see the beauty of the game and the competitiveness of the game. And it's just like in national championships prior, and really in the playoffs prior, it wasn't there on Monday. And so that's what I was thinking is like, I wish we had more firepower on both sides of the ball in this game.
I have two questions for you. The first one, do you think Chip Kelly and Ryan Day trust Will Howard?
Trust how? Because, like, do they trust him? Like, first of all, they didn't need Will Howard. I mean, we saw what he was like 15 for 15 at some point in the third quarter, but he was throwing the ball like behind the line of scrimmage. I think that they trust him if they needed to trust him, but coaches are by default conservative. And I think that Ryan Day and definitely Marcus Freeman, I think that they fall into that same category. If there was a threat on the other side of that Ohio State team, if they were playing 2019 LSU, I think we would have seen a different game plan. But I thought the game was going to be a blowout. I didn't think that Notre Dame would be able to score 20. And so you answer the question, yeah, they trust Will Howard, but I think they trust their instinct as far as knowing how many risks that they would have to take in that game to win it, which wasn't very many.
My second question, do you think the matchup that we got and the kind of resulting, kind of knew it was going to happen going into it, do we think which of these do you think played into that? NIL / the transfer portal, the new playoff, or was it simply just a down year in college football in terms of no great team? And it's not related to those two things.
The truth, Ohio State was a great team. I don't care that they lost to Michigan and Oregon. And you look at what they brought in they had a $20 million payroll. They brought in Caleb Downs. They brought in Seth Hennigan. They brought in Will Howard. They add that to Jeremiah Smith, who, I mean, you might as well include in the transfer portal class because, I mean, he was new into this class. You know what I mean? And I bet you NIL had something to do with Jeremiah Smith going to Ohio State. It was all just because Brian Hartline is there. So I think it's I forgot what the two, like NIL and what there was another NIL played
the nature of the playoff.
Yeah. And just the fact that there wasn't a great team this year. Like we didn't have a 2019 LSU team in college football this year. So I don't know. That's what I think it was.
I think that the playoffs still need some tweaking in terms of the seedings. Because I mean, realistically, we shouldn't have gotten Oregon and Ohio State round 2, right?
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the most egregious one. There were a couple matchups that you were like, this is super soft for
Penn State's path to the playoff. They played SMU and Boise State. I mean, and then they were in the third. I mean, it's just that was soft.
Yeah,
that was soft. Now
I didn't want to name any names. I didn't want to name any names as a Pitt fan. I didn't want to look biased over here, but.
And then they produced one of the best games of the playoff between them and Notre Dame. And then Arizona State, Texas was really good, But I don't know. We probably still need some tweaking.
The thing that I actually didn't like about this year, just to kind of put a bow on this, and I'm hoping that this was kind of a one-off, is it seemed like there were a lot of teams this year that were relying on a close loss to really kind of boost a resume or like a performance that was pretty good, but they still lost the game anyway. I don't think Penn State should have been seeded as high as they were, but they got a lot of credit for kind of hanging with Oregon in that Big 12 championship game. They didn't beat anybody all year. Kind of the same for respectfully to Boise State. I know why they made it and everything, but I mean, their resume really was hung on that Oregon game, right? I don't know that there were ever like a full game the rest of the year where they put it all together and you're like, that's Boise. That's them right there. It felt like there were a couple teams like that this year that just like we're getting credit for being close in a loss. And that didn't sit that well with me.
It's probably high level quarterback play that drives the interest in the game, right? And who are, no offense to Will Howard and Riley Leonard, but those guys aren't the type of guys that would make you have to turn on the TV. Now next year, Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers, Bryce Underwood. I think Avery Johnson has that ability to make you turn on the TV. So maybe DJ Lagway, definitely. I mean, Dylan Raiola, if he takes a step, it might be that next year we do have some of those, offenses and those quarterbacks that if they get into the playoff, we see some more epic matchups and some shootouts and some high level. I think high level chess match is what I want to see. Like that CJ Stroud versus Georgia game. I mean, that was an epic game. That field goal at the end, and CJ Stroud finally running in that game after Ryan Day didn't let him run for 3 years, except for that first game his freshman year against against Michigan State, where he took one carry and took it to the house, and then he never let him run again until that. He let him run at the beginning of his career and at the very end. The first game and the last game didn't let him cross the line of scrimmage between them.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll have some epic games like that next season because we will have some high level. Was that Beck? Was that Beck versus CJ Stroud, or was it Stetson Bennett? I can't remember.
It would have been Stetson, right? That was 2 years
but it
ago.
Was still, I mean, that offense was great too. Jade Greathouse in the second half of this game was excellent, and he was excellent the week prior against Penn State. And big 6'1", 6'2", 200. He was listed at 220 as a recruit. I think I even saw him listed at 225. He's down to 215. He looks to me to be slimmer. And in this game, he was winning in a multitude of ways. He was snapping off routes. He was winning contested catches. And he did that last week against or the week prior against Penn State. Like, do you think that did he take a step this season and could he take a step next season, especially if he continues to? Because I think he could probably afford to lose another 215. He could probably go to 205, and then we might be really excited about him.
I wonder what kind of athletic measurables losing 10 pounds would get him to, because we have him as like a 15 percentile athlete or something in our database. I don't know that there are really any pros that have made it a wide receiver with that low of a athleticism score. And we have, we've updated the weight and stuff. We don't still have his weight as a recruit. I think anytime I start thinking about, like, does this wide receiver have a chance? The first thing I do is, were they a year 1-0? Did they hit one of those 8 thresholds that we have for true freshman wide receivers inside the top 300 of the composite? And he did. So he kind of checks that box right off the bat. The second box for me is the athleticism. I can't get past it today. But like you said, if he did shed 10 pounds, what would he look like? I don't know, because he's always been kind of a technical guy. It's just, there was this clip that I always went back to on his high school tape. He was in the slot.
The double move. It was out and up.
So there was this one where he was just asked to slant, just inside release. Corner was up on him. I don't know why the corner was up on him in the slot in a high school game trying to jam him. He beat the press, and he was so slow that he completely made the guy whiff. And by the time he went to catch the ball in the slant, the DB was right back on him again. And that really stood out to me. Like, this guy created the separation. He did the hard part. He just can't, he's just not athletic enough to get anything beyond that. So, but I mean, if he can get to even moderately athletic, it could be interesting. I just don't know, is he a slot? Does he have to play there? Because, I mean, you can only get that athletic ability, so high by shedding a little bit of weight. So that's kind of where it sits for me right now. I'd be interested to see what he comes into spring weighing in at.
He probably would have to be a big slot.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you're going to play on the outside, you have to be more athletic to get away. Well, first of all, your boundary corner is going to be your best defensive corner. Your field corner is probably the third out of the nickel is probably right in there. But he could be a big slot and separate, just like you said, and occasionally go downfield and make those big catches. I don't know. I don't know where I have him in my rankings, but he showed that catch versus Penn State. That was the best catch I've seen Jaden Greathouse make. The best catch I've seen him make.
He was in the slot 94% of the time this year.
Yeah.
And the usage in those 2 games, right in line with that 86%, 89%. So, I mean, I think that's what he's going to have to play. I mean, is this shades of N'Keal Harry all over again, though?
Yeah, it really, really is. Yeah, it really, really is. 2024 season is finally over now. Like, what takeaways did you have from the season? What were you surprised by? What did you learn?
I mean, it's now what, our second or third season with the unlimited transfers and the transfer portal and all of that kind of movement. I do think that it's leveling the playing field quite a bit. I think that was part of the problem this year. Not a problem per se, but why we didn't have really great teams. It's so I think that's, as we get more and more years into it, I do think that's leveling the playing field, and I do think it makes it more difficult to project offenses, not even like from a depth chart perspective, but like, will this offense be good? I think it's making it really difficult to do that, because you lose 1 or 2 pieces on a line, shift quarterbacks, lose a key wide receiver or something like that, and it changes offensive outlooks drastically. So I think that was the big takeaway I took away from this year for what we're doing from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what mine would be, and I don't necessarily have one. It's just I think it is the fact that players do need time to develop. And case in point being Lenora Sellers, we had the expectations for him that we did, thinking he's going to hit the ground running. He didn't. He obviously didn't do that. And then the way he ended the season, it's like, okay, he's clicking, and to actually, not everybody's going to be Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith out the gate, or, Jaden Daniels for I mean, Jay Daniels was actually good as a freshman. Wasn't he? He was good.
He was, yeah.
He was good.
Yeah.
Jay Daniels, either with Arizona State or with Washington. Not everybody's going to be like that. So that's probably something to keep in mind when you're doing freshman drafts this year and you're taking, DeCorian Moore at 5 and Bryce Underwood at 1 and some of these Keelan Russell going to Alabama. It's just the fact that they need time to develop. I think that's the biggest thing. And then not necessarily projecting that growth early on and not depending on it. Like you're going to need to have this, meaning like I'm going to need to have some established guys to fit into flex spots early on while we figure out whether those guys starting for the first time, not like immediately relying on them, sorting out. Go get yourself an Owen McCown and slide him in to your super flex quarterback spot because we know what he did last year. Probably going to do the same thing this year. Don't you might have to start Owen McCown over Bryce Underwood for a few weeks.
A year.
You
think you would start Bryce Underwood at all next year with the receivers they have there? And I have a severe distrust of them being willing to open that up. Get what you're saying.
I think Bryce Underwood, best case scenario, is he looks like a better version of Drew Aller. And by that, I mean like be efficient, but there's the focus of that offense is probably still going to be turning around and handing the ball off to Justice Haynes.
Which is funny because I think it's the least proven Michigan running back group we have in a while too,
But super high expectations for it's not Peoples is the one at Ohio State. Who's the guy? Jordan Marshall.
Yeah.
Jordan Marshall. I always get those guys mixed up.
I do too. They're kind of similar.
Yeah. So I would think that's what I've learned. And then as you play the college fantasy game, I think that the 134 FBS teams doesn't feel like a lot. And you understand, like when the quarterback at North Texas pops off, or Texas State, or JMU, like you react a little bit quicker. I react a little bit quicker than I would have in the past to go get guys like that. I think that would be another takeaway.
I still, I don't know if struggle is the right word. It's just so you get burned on those two though. So it is.
Who was the running back at Ohio last year who transferred to Minnesota?
Ricky Hunt or Sia Bangura who left.
Sia Bangura and then Sam Wiglusz too.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was looking at Sam Wiglusz, and he didn't really step up like that. So, you got to be careful about projecting and thinking that. Not only do you have to be careful about projecting guys getting playing time for the first time, but thinking that somebody's going to take a jump after you saw him for 3 or 4 games, like Ricky Hunt last year. Ricky Hunt in the bowl game, what he had like 3 or 4 touchdowns, and is just non-existent, and he transfers to Tulsa this year.
Tulsa or Tulane, I forget.
No, it's Tulsa.
It's
Tulsa. I don't know. I forgot who Tulane got to replace Micah Hughes. It's not. I don't think it's Ricky Hunt though. So in the spirit of the AP releasing their final top 25, I put together a list of my top 25 most impactful players in college fantasy in 2024. You want to hear it?
I do.
And this is like my criteria. So, not everybody's going to be on here. But here we go. Starting at number 25, I am going to put Lenore Sellers there. Just because he showed that stretch between November, just how impactful he can be as both a rusher and a passer. And you put some players around him on the perimeter, even if you don't, to be honest with you, he's still going to be a force to be reckoned with in 2025. And I think once we get to like best ball drafts, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback taken. That it makes me so happy too, because Sellers was a company win. We were all high on him and turned out to be right on that one. I mean, I'm happy because our customers, our audience, the people who listen to us, the people who read our material, they that's a win for them. That's a win for them also. That if they're playing against people who don't listen to our consume our content, they didn't get that win. You know, they listened to the people that said draft Brandon Ennis and, you know, Raleek Brown. So, I got Lenore Sellers at 25. I got Chandler Morris at 24. And I could have included Chandler Morris, DT Sheffield. What was the other wide receiver's name? I forget.
Damon Ward. Yeah.
Damon Ward. Like those dudes. If you had that stack, that was a 6 stack this year. The 3 of them. Chandler Morris going from TCU to North Texas. Well, I don't know why he didn't stay there. I forgot where he transferred to.
He went to Virginia, so he's effectively dead to us.
It's just like, why did you? But Chandler Morris was great in that role for Eric Morris at North Texas. At number 23, I've got Ryan Williams. You get a freshman wide receiver, and then you can put him into a wide receiver spot. That's I mean, not only like of course we like the fact that you've got his NFL value and potential, but to be able to start him on a week-to-week basis was a big deal. I think he averaged like 19 points a game, 17, 19, somewhere in there. So I got him at 23. I got Cade Klubnik at 22. This is a great value because it bring in Garrett Riley 2 years ago. We thought that the offense was going to work. It didn't. I think we all kind of was like, you know, you don't want to have a piece of the Clemson offense. And in year 2, they clicked. And by the way, you look at it in 2025, that might be the best receiver core in college football. Between Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore, I mean, no offense to like Carnell Tate, who's the number 2 at Ohio State, but I might take the 3 of those guys over what Ohio State has. I'm trying to think of somebody else who has a decent wide receiver or decent 1, 2, 3. But that might be the best wide receiver core in the country. So I've got Cade Klubnik at 22. I've got Xavier Restrepo at 21. Xavier Restrepo did what we thought he was going to do, but I mean, he was so damn consistent in that slot wide receiver, a PPR machine. I kind of think that he's going to be the same thing in the NFL. You know, 5 years. As a matter of fact, I think I even did a short on Xavier Restrepo going into the season. Like, if there's going to be somebody, who said this today? I think Mike said this, and I agree with him. If there's going to be somebody that has that Ricky Parasol type rise, like, it could be Xavier Restrepo in this draft class. Really liked him. Really liked the value that he provided, even though, you know, you probably took him highly. I mean, I took him. He was a supplemental draft pick for me in one league, and I took him in the second round. And then he provided you could start him every single week. He torched my Louisville Cardinals here. I can't believe I think that's the first time I ever said that. My Louisville Cardinals, my adopted team, torched us. Number 20, I've got that Owen McCown. Owen McCown, just the volume of passing for the – and I don't remember where he ended up. I know it's between 25 and 30 points a game, I believe. He's going to be there next year. The son of former Detroit Lions quarterback and wide receiver, Josh McCown. I got to include him there. Give some love to the G5. I can't remember. Is he at UTSA?
He's at UTSA. Yeah.
I always get UTSA and UTEP mixed up.
I mean, he was legitimately bad for the first half of the season.
Was he?
And then something just clicked in that offense. Yeah. And he didn't have he had 300 yards against Kennesaw, but then like 105 against Texas State, 132 against Texas, 226 against
and then 434 yards and 4 against Tulsa.
Yeah, that's where it really kind of started clicking. Yeah. Yeah, 280 and 4, 379 and 2. Yeah, I mean, it kind of went forward from there.
Yeah. And then, yeah. And he's running the ball, too. He had 340 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So I got Owen McCown at number 20. I've got Woody Marks at 19. If you look at what he did running the ball and passing the ball, Lincoln Riley going back to – I'm trying to think of who was that guy that Ramondre Stevenson shared the ball with and he ended up getting drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles and hasn't done anything. But Lincoln Riley has always had like a bell cow. And I don't know why I didn't see, this coming for Woody Marks, but he was excellent this season, through the air and through on the ground and through the air. And you can start him every week. And he led me to a few playoffs. I'm trying to think of who that guy is, Austin. I thought you were going to give me the assist.
I was looking for it.
It was the guy before Ramondre Stevenson. And I can't remember. As a matter of fact, I want to say that Ramondre Stevenson got suspended in that bowl game, and this running back is the one who ended up carrying the load. I can't remember who that was.
Kennedy Brooks?
Kennedy Brooks.
Trey Sermon.
No, it was Kennedy Brooks. No, it was Kennedy Brooks. Kennedy Brooks. Yeah. At number 18, I've got Gunnar Helm, because there was a portion of the season where Gunnar Helm was the best pass catcher for Texas. Isaiah Bond wasn't showing up. Matthew Golden hadn't really, had his kind of clicked in the offense just yet. And Gunnar Helm was the best player in that offense. Now, I think Gunnar Helm only averaged like 10 points a game or so, but I don't remember anybody talking about Gunnar Helm coming into the season. So he's like a waiver wire pickup at a position, where you needed him. And this is a Campus to Canton play, because he's one of the reasons why this is a strong tight end class, and he might be a highly used player, high leverage player in the NFL. So I got Gunnar Helm at 18. Speaking of my Cardinals, I got Isaac Brown at 17. You get a true freshman, become a bell cow for an ACC program, and play as well as he did. You were putting Isaac Brown in the flex, I'm guessing, and a bell cow at what? Just over 200 pounds. I'm interested to see his development. He gets Miller Moss as his quarterback going into 2025, but I think that offense is going to be built around him, and maybe built around Chris Bell also, now that they don't have Ja'Cory Brooks. Ooh. Is Jermaine Johnson still at U of L, or did he transfer? Jermaine Johnson.
I don't know.
But they got a tight end there that's also athletic. I think it's Jermaine Johnson. I think that's his name. He was behind. I forgot what his name, but the guy who he was like a 4 or 5 star recruit for Washington before he transferred to U of L. So, but I got Isaac Brown at 17. He was excellent. I got Kyle McCord at 16. Just consistent volume every single week, and really clicking in that offense. And they had some big wins in the season, including beating Miami. But he was the kind of the tide that lifted all ships with Trevor Pena and Treber Pena and the other dude from Georgia and Aronde Gadsden. Who was it? Meeks? Was it Jackson Meeks?
Yeah, Jackson Meeks. Yeah.
Jackson Meeks. So I really liked Kyle McCord's game this year, especially after kind of bouncing back. I've got 2 TCU players here, back to back, and Jack Beck and Savion Williams. The reason why Jack Beck is here because he's a wide receiver with tight end eligibility. I think he finished at the tight end 2 or something like that, averaging like 20 points a game. I'm in a waiver wire player. You get Jack Beck in there and you put him at tight end. I mean, you had an advantage every single week. Savion Williams, waiver wire player. I don't know what he's going to be at the next level, but he definitely showed out in that like wildcat package and running the football, and was able to score on the ground. That just made him so dynamic and a player that you had to start. And he was probably on the waiver wire a lot of places. Now, I got Brashard Smith at 13 for the same reasons. A running back with wide receiver eligibility, at least in my leagues we did. So you're putting a running back in your wide receiver position, averaging with 23, 24 points a game. That was a big win for anybody who got Brashard Smith. And if there is a Tyrone Tracy in this class, it's probably Brashard Smith. And quite frankly, Brashard Smith is probably more athletic than Tyrone Tracy. And he at Miami, he broke like all the year 1-0 things, right?
6, I believe. Yeah.
6 of the 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that he was dual eligible, that you could put this running back, slide him into a wide receiver spot, is just one of those cheat codes. And there are those guys every single year. He was one of them. So I got Brashard Smith at 13. I've got RJ Harvey at 12. I don't know that there needs to be a lot said about RJ Harvey. He was consistent, and he provided what you needed. I got Desmond Reed at 11. I don't know how. I mean, Desmond Reed was going to be the backup this season, right? And Rodney Hammond was – what happened to Rodney Hammond? Did he get suspended?
He was ruled ineligible. Yeah.
Ineligible. Did they ever say why? I don't think they ever said why.
They might have. I don't know.
But then he came back, and Desmond Reed still kept the job.
And he transferred. I mean, Reed's still there, and Hammond's gone now. So
yeah. So I got Desmond Reed, Pitt running back there at 11. I got Harold Fannin at 10. I mean, what did he have? 1,400 yards receiving. He was a wide receiver again. Chris Moxley, you got to listen to what he's saying, because Chris Moxley told us about Harold Fannin a long time ago. I have no exposure to Harold Fannin, despite Chris telling us that there with my coach, Scott 1T Leffler. And now Scott has Arliss Boardingham, so maybe Arliss Boardingham could be the next Harold Fannin Jr. But just sticky hands, man. There in the MAC. The MAC always has some guy that just goes off and that's scoring for you. For me, it was Khalil Pimpleton. Khalil Pimpleton literally won me like $120 one year. Shout out to Khalil Pimpleton. They're at Central Michigan. I've got Tyler Warren at 9. I got a lot of tight ends on here, but Tyler Warren, again, another guy with a wildcat package, throwing passes, doing everything there at the tight end position. Like these tight end, Jack Beck, Harold Fannin Jr., Tyler Warren, they all provided really tremendous advantages at the tight end position. I've got Jeremiah Smith at number 8. I feel like that's also self-explanatory. You got a freshman wide receiver that you can just plug in that's going to go off. He could have 3 catches and, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's that good. Just made a real impact on the game this year. I got Bryson Daly at number 7. Now, I need somebody to correct me on this. I feel like the last time we really had faith, and I could be wrong, on a Service Academy quarterback was like when Keelan Reynolds was playing at what, Air Force or
Navy. Reynolds was Navy, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Bryson Daly had 1,600 yards rushing. The dude had like 1,600 yards rushing. He was just a monster this year. And I could have put Blake Horvath here too, but Blake Horvath, he faded down the stretch. I did not have Blake Horvath on here. But both of the Service Academy quarterbacks deserve their flowers this year. And I can't wait until we get into best ball season when Jared's running the best balls, because I want to see if people are going out and grabbing the Service Academy quarterbacks in 2025. I've got Devin Dampier at number 6. Probably one of the more fun players to watch in college football, but he's also productive. I don't remember how many rushing yards Devin Dampier had in 2025, but I mean, he was just dynamic on the ground and through the air. And that was week 0. We got to see him in week 0, and he kind of kept it up all season. Devin Dampier got him. I got Bashil Tootin at number 5. He dealt with a lot of injuries, was still really super consistent when, my boy Kyron Drones was not. Bashil Tootin, plays. He's like 205 pounds, but he plays like he's 215, 220 pounds. Bashil Tootin, running back Virginia Tech. I got him at 5. I got your boy Ashton Jeanty at 4. The only reason I don't have him higher is because he was the number 1 pick. He was the number 1 pick, and he did number 1 pick stuff. So friend of the show, Ashton Jeanty. That's another one that if you listen to our content, if you listen to our content, you got Ashton Jeanty, you got Quinshon Judkins, you got Lenora Sellers. You should have a stacked roster if you've been consuming our content. I got Nick Nash at 3. This is a true story. First of all, Nick Nash laid an egg in the playoffs. I mean, just screwed you in the playoffs. But damn it, he was averaging 40 points a game until then. And I went back and looked at my very first, as my thing goes off again, my very first C2C league that I drafted in 2020. And don't you know, in like the 40-something round, I took quarterback out of San Jose State, Nick Nash. And the only reason I picked him was like, this is a dual threat quarterback. I actually sorted the stats by quarterback and by rushing yardage. And Nick Nash was at the top, and I was like, all right, I'll take this guy. I should have held him on because he had a Jarrett Stearns-like season there for San Jose State. He's a Senior Bowl. Did he go to the Senior Bowl?
No, I don't think so. I don't know where he got invited to, but it wasn't Senior Bowl.
Okay. Oop. Sorry about that. Did that pick up on the microphone?
Yeah.
Okay, and then at number 2, I added Caleb Johnson, and I put Caleb Johnson here instead of Ashton Genty because of the value that Caleb Johnson was. Caleb Johnson didn't even start the season as the starter. It was Moulton or whatever like that. By the way, how bad is your evaluation? You know, when Caleb Johnson had the season that he had as the backup to start. I mean, it's not like we didn't know that Caleb Johnson was good. He had over 700 yards his freshman season. So I've got Caleb Johnson that's number 2, and number 1. You know who number 1 is. Number 1 is y'all boy, John Mateer. I mean, this is why you didn't need to draft quarterback early, because there were guys like this. Now, when we were talking about that Zeviak House, John Mateer battle, I don't think anyone knew that he was going to go average 40 a game and on the West Coast. So you would wake up and you were down, and you would wait and you would wake up in the morning and have one because John Mateer carried you to a win. But I mean, just a dynamic season out there for Washington State. It's crazy to me that we had all these expectations for Cam Ward at Washington State because of what we saw from Cam Ward at Incarnate Ward, and we thought that spread system was going to be great. Cam Ward was never – he was like a 20-point per game fantasy player or something like that, and then he goes to Miami and blows up. And in his place, John Mateer was just as good as Cam Ward at Miami. That's my top 25. That's my top 25, Austin.
I like it. A little weird to me that Harold Fannin scored more points than Tyler Warren. You had Tyler Warren ahead of him, but other than that, I can't. Not too many comments on the ordering, I will say.
This was prepared well in advance of today's show, Austin. This was prepared weeks ago. It was not prepared immediately before this show.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I wanted to actually toss it when you were talking about Gunnar Helm. It kind of had me thinking. I'm a Steelers fan, lifelong. Gunnar Helm kind of reminds me a bit of Heath Miller, who was the tight end on a couple of those Super Bowl teams in like the 2000s. And they're the same size. I looked up their athletic comps in our database. So they don't comp to each other, but they have the same exact athletic score, and they have 4 shared like comps in our database that pop up for each of them. That's kind of who I can see Gunnar Helm being in the NFL. He's a serviceable blocker. Heath Miller was better than serviceable, so maybe he's got some work to do there. But it kind of was making me think of that. Now I kind of like that comp a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good tight end class. Elijah Arroyo, Gunnar Helm, Harold Fannin Jr., Tyler Warren, Mason Taylor is declared. When Heath Miller was with the Steelers, that's when Todd Heap was the tight end for the
Ravens. Yeah,
that was a good tight ends in the AFC North. Okay.
Yeah. I think Kellen Winslow Jr. might have been with the Browns at some point during that stretch too. I thought with those guys. So
he was, but he was always. And he had the motorcycle injury or whatever. He was never.
Oh, Heap was always injured too. That was like the big thing with Heap. I think he had like a hip dislocation or something like that at one point along the line. And
Kellen Winslow Jr. That's one of those guys that I mean, he could have been a Hall of Famer if he wasn't a knucklehead and kept his nose clean.
I might be underselling Kellen Winslow's criminal history at this point. But
yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Kellen Winslow has a really dark criminal history, if I remember.
Yeah, there's like some elder abuse. I don't remember the exact extent of that. It's not
right.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. Don't Google that. Okay. You got anything else?
No, that Gunnar Helm thing was the first thing that came to mind. And actually, his comps in our database, just to toss them out there: Pat Fryermuth, Zach Ertz, Jeff Hewerman, one of the Gronkowski brothers, and CJ Fedorowicz or whatever his name was that came out of Iowa, and people thought he was going to be pretty good. He played for what, the Jets?
I don't remember.
I forget who he played for, but he was kind of a popular name. So I mean, he's got good comps. I think he's a little underrated at this point. Starting to get beyond. I don't talk rookies or anything anymore, but I mean, if I was drafting rookies, I might be interested there. So
yeah. Instead, we're drafting freshmen, and nobody cares about that. We'll probably do a mock draft, a freshman mock draft here.
So the two guys that have written basically every profile we have done so far for the guide, sitting right here on this this show right now.
15 of them that have been drafted. All right. It's a short one tonight. I think that's going to be it. That's going to be our show for tonight. Apologies to Kirk Street. We ran out of time. We'll get them rescheduled soon. For Austin Nace, I'm Felix Sharpe. Good night. Good luck, y'all.